Welcome, welcome to the evening show with Jackie Brambles. Tonight, as you may have guessed from our opening track, Blue Savannah, we are being joined by the headline act for this Saturday's Rewind Scotland Festival in Perth. From Erasure, welcome to Andy Bell.
Hello, Jackie. Hi.
Nice to speak to you.
You too, hon.
Where are you in the world?
I'm in London, in Limehouse.
Ah, right, okay. Because don't you sort of live half and half between London and Miami?
Yeah, my partner's from Florida, so we did have a place in Miami. We're waiting for another place to be built. So, yeah, we're kind of in between at the moment.
Oh, well, it's lovely to know that you're on our shores, and a good job too, because you are headlining all three rewinds.
I am. Yeah, I'm getting a bit nervous now about it, but.
You're getting nervous about it?
Yeah. It's the first show, so hopefully I'll be okay.
How often are you performing these days then, Andy?
Well, the last Erasure tour that got cut short in 2019 with the whole COVID thing going on. And then, I have done Rewind before, which was really nice, but I haven't done them all together in one go, so...
Right. Okay. So it's quite unusual, I think, for us to have the same headliner at all three of them. So you're a big deal.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, hopefully it sells some tickets. I don't know.
I don't think there's any danger of that not happening.
Oh.
How do you sort of feel about this real resurgence of love and affection and popularity of music from the 80s and 90s? Because, you know, it kind of went through its naff phase, that perception of that music then. And, you know, but it's really so widely popular again.
Yeah, it's funny because we never really had big shoulders or big hair, you know. Yeah. So I think we escaped that kind of brush, you know, by
you weren't dating yourself.
Well, I mean, with working with Vince, you know, he had his career before I met him, so he was very early 80s, you know. And then when we had our first Erasure hit, I suppose that was 1987, so it was kind of towards the end of the 80s and the early 90s. So we kind of lapped over, which has been very fortunate for us, you know, the 80s and the 90s thing. So yeah, and then, you know, we kind of continued all along, you know, but it's because they don't have Top of the Pops anymore. People don't get to see us so much, you know. So in some ways it's kind of nice. It's like a bit of a blessing, you know, after we had the ABBA-esque EP in 92, it kind of all came to a crescendo, you know, and for me it was a bit too much.
Yeah.
You know, and then it was before social media, so I can only imagine what it's like now for the young people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So intense, so much pressure.
Yeah, yep.
Well, listen, let's talk about the new record that's out. It's sort of it's an updated version of Always, the very best of Erasure, right?
Oh yeah, the vinyl. Yeah, it's. I'm not sure if it's going to be a colour one or not. I don't know.
I mean, and because there's just, when people bring out a greatest hits, you just hope that there's more than 2 or 3 on there, and there's just so many of yours.
Oh,
it's double album worthy.
Yeah, well, I think for us, we became one of those kind of faceless bands where people, you know, they know the songs, but they don't necessarily know that we did them. So I think when you hear them all together like that in a collection, it kind of reminds people who we are.
Open your eyes, I see you, and make believe with you, and live in heart.
That's Always, Erasure's 14th hit single, which got to number 4 in 1994, and is the title track to the newly updated double vinyl greatest hits collection, which will be released next month. I have to say, Andy, that I think you are one of the most modest and unassuming pop stars I think I've ever encountered.
Oh, well, I like to think like in that way, though.
Oh.
Yeah, I do. Maybe I'll be too big-headed otherwise, you know.
Well, listen, we want to take you back to the days long before pop stardom ever crossed your mind to find out what those early musical influences were in your childhood. Were your parents into music? What sorts of things would you be absorbing by osmosis as a kid? Growing up in Peterborough, right?
Yes, I grew up in Peterborough, and I did pinch one of my mum's records because she used to buy records. I mean, they had loads of 45s from the 1950s, you know, when they were teenagers.
Right.
And so I had loads of, you know, I went through those. They had the Kalin Twins, that Inky Dinky Pig Polka Dot Bikini song. And
oh, brilliant.
It was an itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow. She
And then they had quite eclectic taste, like music. They had Phil Spector's greatest hits on LP, and then there's a big country and western scene in Peterborough. And they had Slim Whitman, Charlie Price, Jim Reeves. So I had that kind of country twang. And then my mum was a huge Elvis fan, and my dad was a big Buddy Holly fan. So it was kind of crooning music that I grew up to, you know.
There you go, baby. Here am I. Will you won't matter anymore.
Number 1 in 1959, It Doesn't Matter Anymore. That's Buddy Holly, being played in the Bell household as Andy grew up in Peterborough. And we'll be back to continue our great conversation with our very special guest, Andy Bell of Erasure, next. Welcome back to the evening show with Jackie Brambles, where it's just you, me, and our very special guest, Erasure's Andy Bell, who is headlining all 3 Rewind festivals over the summer. Before the break, Andy, we were hearing about your mum and dad's vast record collection and their enthusiasm for music. So do you remember the first single that you bought of your own volition with your saved up pocket money?
I think I remember that. Was that the B-52s? Yeah, I think it was Rock Lobster, the first one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was because I think I tried to freak my mum out a little bit, you know, because I wasn't really tough enough to be a punk.
Right.
And I liked two-tone music as well at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, I became a huge Blondie fan, but before that, I tried to pick singers that were really unusual, like Lena Lovett and Nina Hagen. And I think I chose B-52s because, you know, it was similar to rock and roll, but at the same time, it was quite quirky and quite punky.
Yeah.
And very different for the American scene, you know, apart from bands like Devo and Talking Heads, you know. So I think we were very privileged at that time with the range of music that we had.
We were at the beach. Everybody had matching.
And would you remember the first live gig that you went to that would have sort of, you know, blown you away, somebody that we would know?
I mean, there were a few, you know. I remember I saw Susie and the Banshees at the Warina. And she's amazing. I just saw her on Sky. She's incredible, you know. And we met her once. We bumped into her at Sire Records when we were signed to them in the US. And I was too scared to talk to her. I couldn't.
Oh, no!
But I think I might go and see her in September. She's playing again in London. But anyway, that time, the first show I saw was Joe Jackson, which I didn't know his music very much. But then the one band that I was really into was Japan. I loved Dave Sylvian and especially the song Quiet Life. That was the song that turned me onto them. And I didn't realise at that time that I was really into Giorgio Moroder, and he was the guy that wrote I Feel Love with Donna Summer. So I was a big fan then of those arpeggiated synths, you know. And Japan was kind of like a guitar synth band with very glamorous musicians.
Number 19 in 1982, that's Quiet Life by Japan. A favourite of a teenage Andy Bell falling in love with the sound of those synths and the Giorgio Moroder production that at the time was so prevalent, right?
I didn't put two and two together, you know. Then when you look back at his catalogue and you see all the music, I thought, oh, no wonder I like those bands, you know.
Oh, how interesting. And did you ever meet him along the way?
I haven't met him. We asked him one time to do a remix for us for Breath of Life, and he was going to charge us £10,000, so we said it was too much. So he didn't do it, you know. But I would love to work with him. But anyway, I remember reading in Melody Maker or NME that Debbie Harry and David Sylvian were going to have a baby. And I thought, oh my God, what would they look like, the baby?
How exciting.
I know.
Like the dream baby. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
When you were when you were a teenager and stuff and really getting into your music, at what point did you realise, actually, I want to be up there. I don't want to just be in the crowd. I want to do that.
Yeah, I don't think I realised that I would be a singer, even though singing was second nature to me. I just sang all the time. So I didn't really think then that could be my job. But I used to tell my aunties and people that I was going to be famous when I grew up, which I didn't really know what for, but it was a bit silly,
Yeah.
And
Had that feeling.
yeah, I mean, I used to go and take poems round to my auntie's house and read them to her, which I completely forgot about. But that was the initial songwriting process, back then was writing poems.
Poetry. Yeah.
Yeah, but I wanted to join a band in school, and but we never got round to it. So that's the reason that I moved to London, was to be in a band.
And so did you sort of feel like Peterborough's, I've got to get out of here, I've got to get to the big bright lights, and I've got to...
Yeah, I think to be honest, yeah, with being gay as well, like town was too small. There was nowhere to go to.
There wasn't a scene back then.
No, there really wasn't. You couldn't go anywhere. Yeah, I just thought, well, people just... Then I didn't want people to know then. I thought, well,
Yeah.
they're going to find out if I stay here. So I'd much rather go away and then tell them,
And did you sort of have a supportive family when you came out, Andy? Was it sort of...
Yeah, they were lovely. I had my first girlfriend. I moved to London with her. Well, my only girlfriend, actually. And she helped me come out. She was really sweet,
Oh,
and I went to Embassy Club on a Sunday evening, and all the men were so good looking, and I thought, I'm never going to fit in here,
oh.
in this place, So it took ages, but I remember going to Heaven like once a week on Pyramid. It was a Wednesday, and I remember seeing like Boy George there and Kenny Everett sometimes, and it was kind of like, I was like, I got like really enamored with like famous people,
Well, yeah, I mean, it is just sort of seeing all these famous people up close.
Yeah, it's a really strange experience, I remember when we did Cole Porter's Red Hot and Blue we were in New York, Vince and I doing the video.
Yeah.
And they said, somebody's here, somebody's come to see you. And I just looked around, and it was Debbie Harry. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, I've met her now probably about 4 or 5 times, but that first time I couldn't even speak.
Was it destiny? I don't know yet.
Blondie, Touched by Your Presence, Dear, from 1979. And our special guest, Andy Bell, certainly was touched by the presence of Deborah Harry when you first met.
Then we went out, we had drinks, and we had champagne and vodka.
Oh.
And then I remember I picked up the champagne glass, and I had a beer mat underneath it, and it fell off and fell in Debbie Harry's lap. And she said, and she was just looking at me, and she said, well, pick it up then. My hand was like really shaking, and I took the beer mat from her lap. I said, oh, I'm really sorry. And she said, oh, next time, make sure you drop it up a bit higher.
Naughty.
So she's like that.
So let's talk about how you got together with Vince then. Obviously, he is a few years older than you. He was already a pop star when you first met. So how did that all work?
Well, I mean, I don't know how he really coped, because he was 17 when he was in Depeche Mode. And, I was a big, huge fan. And, for me, he couldn't do a thing wrong, really, and
Yeah.
And I thought, well, who would be a great person to work with who's in the charts? So I thought my ideal choice would be Yazoo, or would be Vince Clarke.
Right.
And I remember going to one of my first auditions, because I was in a band before I met Vince. And then we only played 2 shows, and one was in Southall in a Domino's club, and the second one was in a park in Ealing.
Right.
We got pelted with eggs by the builders.
Oh,
no. I thought, well, I need to join a band, and one audition I'd been to was a spin-off band of Bow Wow Wow.
Oh, right.
And I didn't really know how to hold the microphone then. So I think I didn't get it because of my naivety and stuff. And, but I saw Vince Clarke. He was in the Blackwing studio, which he used to half own, with Eric Radcliffe. And he was on the Space Invaders machine with his big fringe hanging down. And I thought, oh my God, that's Vince Clarke, And so then since then I thought, oh, maybe I should write Vince a letter and see if he needs a singer. And then I answered this ad in Melody Maker, and it was for him. And I was just like, wow, this is too much, And then I used to rehearse along to our Anderson Moye records and Yazoo records, and then I remember my flatmate said to me, oh, that's going to be you in a year's time.
Oh, how amazing. How amazing. So when you went, did you have to go and sort of audition for him? He's looking for a new singer, and you had to walk in a studio somewhere, or?
Yeah, when I first called up, they said, well, all the auditions are already full, so if we don't find anybody, we'll ring you back. And I thought, well, they won't bring me back. And then they did. And then they said, oh, it's for Vince Clarke. And I was like screaming around the house, you know. And then they said, can you come today or tomorrow? So I went down there, and I thought, well, I'm just going to have a really good time, whatever happens. Yeah. And then I think I was the penultimate person they saw. I mean, God knows, you know, I mean, my confidence was through the roof. But now when I hear the demos back, I think like, oh my God, what was I thinking? You know?
What did you sing? Do you remember?
I sang Who Needs Love Like That, which was our first single.
Oh, wow. Who Needs Love Like That? Andy Bell and Vince Clarke's very first composition together. Initially released in 1985. It only got to number 55 at that point. But when they re-released it 7 years later, got to number 10. And we will be back with more great conversation from our very special guest, Erasure's Andy Bell, next. Welcome back to the evening show with Jackie Brambles, where tonight we are midway through our great conversation with our very special guest, Erasure's Andy Bell, who before the break was explaining the audition process that he had to go through to become the singer in Vince Clarke's new outfit called Erasure. So you've done the audition, and did you know there and then that day that you'd got the gig?
I kind of knew, yeah, because the phone rang the next day and it was Mute Records, and they said, we'd like to tell you that you passed the audition, but we're not going to be working in the studio for like 3 more months or so we're going to put you on a retainer. And then it was like £150 a week.
Wow.
And so I went to Ibiza.
Of course you did. What else would you do?
Yeah,
somebody's giving you £150 a week.
Yeah, so I'm still on it. Not really.
And how, because I get this sense that, you know, although you had this confidence when you're performing, there's a shyness there with you, Andy.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And suddenly, again, we're talking about that thing of you're being forced to you're standing on the same stage as somebody that you have, you know, really greatly admired, who's already famous, who's already successful. How did you manage to construct an equal relationship from that start?
Well, I think what happens, I think one reason as well why I kind of wanted to be well known is because I was so shy. And then, you know, also when I used to go out to bars, nobody would come up to me at all. So I used to have to go up to people, and I'd only go up to them if I felt compelled, you know. And sometimes it was on the tube train, and I would just see somebody say, "Oh, here's my phone number." You know, this was before anybody knew who I was.
Right.
But then you have to learn diplomacy. So by learning how to become a diplomat, you sort of learn how to talk to people and say hello. But I still do get shy when I go to functions and things, you know.
Right, yeah.
Especially, I won't go up to like other people just because I know who they are, because I don't assume that they will know who I am, you know. So you kind of
right. I
don't know, but you kind of like build up this bravado after a period, you know. It took me probably about a year to do that. Even in the studio with Vince the first time, we were together for 6 months. I wouldn't say a word.
Is that right?
I was just in the studio. I was just staring at Vince the whole time. He probably thought I was like a stalker or something, you know. Yeah, but they were so nice. Vince and the producer Flood, they were trying to make me laugh and
get you to relax and just
all kinds of things. You know, when I was singing "Oh L'Amour," I kept running out of breath all the time, and back to my choir schoolboy days.
Yeah,
and then so they had me laying on the floor on my back to like make me relax. You know.
Oh L'Amour, apparently sung flat on his back in the studio in order to calm down. Andy Bell and Vince Clarke's first big breakthrough hit with Erasure, which got to number 13 in 1986. And I guess another sort of anomaly, something that's fairly unusual when I have these conversations with people, is usually it's, you know, a band, a group of people who all hit the big time at the same time and have that sort of euphoria together. But of course, when you were like doing your first Top of the Pops,
Yeah.
it wasn't that same first time for Vince. So you had sort of the old experienced hand, and you had this. I'm sure you were sort of
Yeah.
absolutely fizzing with excitement at getting there. Do you remember the first one, the first Top of the Pops?
It was with Sometimes, and then I remember Daniel Miller, the MD of music, said, once you've been on this Top of the Pops now, you won't be able to go on the tube tomorrow,
Yeah.
And it kind of did work out like that, but it's kind of calmed down again, for over the past 10 years.
Well, listen, I don't know if you remember, I'm just looking at the Top of the Pops database at your very first Top of the Pops, right?
Yeah.
It was Thursday, the 20th of November, 1986. And in the studio with you were Europe,
Yeah.
Final Countdown, Swing Out Sisters Breakout,
Yeah.
Anita Baker, Sweet Love,
Oh, fantastic.
Bon Jovi with Living on a Prayer, also in the studio, Nick Kamen, Each Time You Break My Heart,
Goodness. Yeah.
and Debbie Harry, French Kissing in the USA.
Really? Was she actually on it? Or maybe.
Yeah, she was in the studio with you guys. You must have blacked out at that point.
Oh my God, yeah. I must have been totally spaced out doing that, because I probably couldn't believe it,
Oh, how nice that you've kind of got that full circle thing going on.
Yeah, it was really sweet. On one of the last Rewind shows I did, I met Kim from Mel and Kim. And she was so lovely, and she said, "Oh yeah, I remember when me and Mel, we did the Top of the Pop, and Erasure was on there. We couldn't believe it."
Oh,
Yeah,
that must make you feel nice.
it really does. It's so nice as well when people have such affection. Bumping into on one of the radio shows, Rita Parrott.
You are my one temptation, the one of no resistance to.
It just came and gave me a great big hug and said, "Oh, Andy, it's so lovely to see you." Because at that time, it was quite, you were a bit scared of other people,
Yes.
especially on Top of the Pop.
Well, what I think has changed, whether that's culturally or just with the wisdom that aging brings, is that the rivalries of our youth seem to have given way now to a new appreciation of each other. But did you have a sense back then, as many of our guest artists have expressed on The Great Conversation, that it was fiercely competitive back in the day?
Yeah, we were always set against the Pet Shop Boys the whole time, because it was,
Oh, of course.
another duo, a boy duo. Yeah, so we were always not against them, but it was like we'd have a few horse race on the betting and things like that.
Yeah.
It was always us two, So it's always kind of a little league table going up and down. So I think as well, Erasure have always been on a huge elliptical path. So our time will come round again,
The Pet Shop Boys, West End Girls.
Oh.
Yeah, I know a song I know you have a real appreciation of, Andy. So, along with all the fame and the money and the accolades that pop stardom inevitably brought, with the huge success that Erasure enjoyed, did you ever reach a point where it became too stressful, or you felt you were in danger of burning out?
I do think you struggled to a certain extent. I mean, for us, it was after we had the ABBA-esque EP, then we had Always afterwards, and it was around about the ABBA time. I was walking along the street, and people were staring at me, and I just said, "Oh God, please can you switch it off?"
Yeah.
the man who wanted to get off the world,
Yeah.
And then it stopped, and I was thinking like, "Oh no, not that much."
Oh, come back a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, come back a bit. Yeah. So, but I think you have to have all your things have to be all in order, and you have to have a good, what's it called, karma and all that kind of stuff.
What if you had to pick a song, Andy, that for you go back to, time after time, that you absolutely love? What would you pick?
Makes me feel really good. I would say, can I say Tears of a Clown?
Of course.
Well, I love Motown, I love Smokey Robinson, and that's the kind of music that sort of dropped off the radar. So I was a huge Northern Soul fan, that led into Motown, and he's got such a lovely voice. It's amazing.
Now if there's a smile on my face, oh yeah, baby.
Tears of a Clown, a hit in 1970 for Smokey Robinson, and our final track tonight, as chosen by our very special guest, Erasure's Andy Bell. Listen, Andy, it's been such a pleasure. We'll catch up together at Rewind.
Oh, thank you, Jackie. See you there.
All right, my love. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Isn't he the most humble and lovely person ever? That's Erasure's Andy Bell. You can see him headline at Rewind Scotland this Saturday, Rewind North on Saturday the 5th of August, and Rewind South on Saturday the 19th of August. And don't forget, if you're into your vinyl collections, Erasure's Always Greatest Hits double album collection will be released on vinyl next month.